Welcome back, everyone, to Getting In, a College Coach Conversation. We're here with Hannah Choi. We're talking about executive functioning in college, ADD, ADHD, and sometimes some of what we're talking about is going to be relevant to students who don't have a diagnosis. All right, so Hannah, my next question is really, you've applied to college, you've gotten in, you're feeling pretty good about your choice. Are there things that students and parents can do basically this summer before they head off to college in order to be better prepared for what awaits when they get there?
Yes, absolutely. And what we were talking about before the break is, of course, really important connecting with the Disability Services Office. Even if your child thinks they won't take advantage of the services, it's still really important to get connected. And that part there is really important that you might experience some resistance from your kid. I have noticed a lot of my clients come to me and say, yeah, when I was in high school, I used some kind of accommodations, but when I got to college I really didn't want to use them, and I really wanted to try going without them. And then they often end up in executive function coaching and
Right.
recognizing, okay, I need to learn some strategies and some tools that can support me while I'm in school, because going without accommodations is not working.
Right.
So I just want to warn parents that you might see that resistance in your kid. They might not be open to a conversation about what services they're going to use in college. And I think that it's okay. It's okay to let them try. It's hard to you feel like you're allowing them to fail, but forcing a kid or trying to force a kid to use the services is not always going to be successful.
Right.
But I do encourage students and their parents, if they're willing to have that conversation together, to do some self reflection and look back on high school and what came easily to you and what was difficult, and what strategies have worked for you, and what things didn't work, and just kind of making some guesses about what might come up for you, and helping our kids understand how it shifts when you're in high school. Like 80% of it you're really supported and
Mhm.
20% you're on your own. And then when you go off to college, it kind of switches, and
Yeah.
they're like, here's 20% of support and now 80% is all on you.
Right.
And so kind of anticipating what you might need is really important, and just practicing that self-reflection and practicing. One of the executive function skills that I love is called metacognition. And that is like learning how we learn, understanding how we think, how our brains work, and just spending some time to try to figure that out is a really worthwhile thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, and while at the same time, right, that you're going to go from like 80% support to 20% on your own, you're also going from probably 90% support at home with
Yes.
everything to
Yes.
90% on your own, right? Now no one's doing your laundry, no
Yes.
one's hounding you to pick up your room, but at the same time, no one's hounding you to pick up your maybe your roommate.
Right.
Right? It's on
Yeah.
you to make sure you get to the
Mhm.
dining hall when they're open so you can eat.
Yep.
It's on you to make sure that you are, typically in college, your classes are going to meet maybe once every 2 or 3 days. And then the
Yeah.
rest of the time you need to get your work done. I mean, so it's not
Yep.
just not you not having the same level of support. It's also that almost everything changes, right? And it's all so on you. Um, in a world where we don't require in the US as much independence as some countries do expect of their college students. So you're getting
Mhm.
some support, but not a lot. So it's a big change, is I guess what I'm trying to say in a
Yes,
lot
it
of words.
really is. And that self-care piece is so important. And for kids with ADHD, sometimes that self-care piece can be forgotten about, and can be overlooked, because it's kind of boring and we're not really interested in doing that. So I
Right.
always build into all of my coaching sessions with college students, we talk about sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I always check in: how's your sleep? How's your nutrition? And how's your exercise? Because those three things, if you can keep those top of mind and keep up with those, it just makes everything else a lot better, a lot
Right.
easier. So, having the conversation about that with your kid before they go off to school, like, you know, where is the dining hall? What do they offer? How are you going to make sure that you're getting up on time and managing your time at night, like when it's time to go to bed, and what are you going to do about getting exercise? And how are you going to do your laundry if you don't know how to do your laundry yet? Or, practicing those things
Right.
over the summer is really helpful.
Yes, as a parent, well, I will say this, I have been in my life a relatively hands-off parent, and I've been very lucky. My son has responded well to that. He really likes being independent. But like he's been doing his laundry, or he had been. He just completed freshman year in college. He sort of had done his laundry. I always did my laundry as a kid. I didn't require it as much of him because I'm divorced and he was going back and forth. But as a parent, if you have your kid and they're at home, they should be doing laundry. And granted,
Absolutely.
it's going to be a little bit more challenging as if they have, ADD, ADHD, but that doesn't mean they can't be doing their own laundry.
That's
And
right. Yep.
right, they shouldn't be learning that when you arrive on college campus. Now it's even more confusing because they've got a coin thing and it's a lot.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
theoretically
also
a coin thing.
yeah, and as a person with ADHD, you might already feel, a little different, and so you don't wanna be walking around in dirty clothes, you wanna feel
No.
confident about yourself, and so it sounds like a silly thing, but you're so right. It's really important for kids with ADHD, all kids, but especially kids with ADHD, to have autonomy and ownership of their self-care, and that laundry piece is a huge part of it.
Yes, yes. And the only other thing I will say, because I've seen it be an issue for just my son this past year, is just it wasn't an issue that he didn't know the dining hall wasn't open. It was more an issue that, oh, the dining hall wasn't open when he really wanted it to. So if you know that you're someone who's maybe going to want to eat late at night or might forget to eat, and then what is your option? Scoping out the hours of the dining hall, of course, where the dining hall is, but also the hours, and also like what else is open on campus or just off campus, so that if you realize, I forgot to eat dinner and I'm starving, you have options. Or are there things you can have in your room, in your fridge or something like that you can eat? So yeah.
Yeah, that's really important for people with ADHD because a lot of ADHD medications make it so that it's difficult to detect that you're hungry. And
Interesting.
yeah, so it is important to have some kind of backup.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if the dining hall closed at 8 and it's
Yeah.
now 10, that's
Yep.
going to be a problem.
Mhm.
All right. So they've done some preparation over the summer. What are some common challenges that you're seeing that new college students run into when they actually are there going to class, that kind of thing?
Yes. So I would say every single college student that I've ever worked with, whether they had ADHD or not, has finds it challenging to manage their time and
Mhm.
to switch from you gotta be at school at 7:30, you're done at 2, and then you go to your after school job or you play your sport and your life is so scheduled and regimented.
Mhm.
And now they're like, "Oh my gosh, I only have, an hour and a half of class today, and the rest of the time is free for me to do whatever I want." And so that kind of switch is huge.
Yeah.
And so what I work on a lot with my clients is figuring out what's realistic, what's reasonable, and when you can schedule those realistic and reasonable goals in. So I spend a lot of time breaking down big assignments into small pieces and then mapping it out. When are you going to do this? And also having a backup time in case something else comes up. And
Right.
I always tell my students that academics, like college is about academics. Yes, like that's why we go. But the socialization part, learning social skills, learning about who we are, what kind of people we want in our lives, what kind of people we don't want in our lives, that's all really, really, really important. And so when you're able to manage your time well, then you can hang out on Friday and Saturday and Sunday guilt free because
Yes.
you have managed your time well and you've gotten your stuff done. And now you don't have to have that little thing hanging over your head like you didn't write that essay, but you really want to hang out with your friends. And so if you're able to manage your time well, prioritize, learn that difficult skill of prioritizing, that can make all the difference in the world.
Yes, I'm laughing partly because as an English major, I am thinking of the countless evenings that I was hanging out with my friends thinking, I really should have written that essay already,
Yes,
and I didn't.
right? Oh my gosh, I know.
I mean, like you say, I think that's something many people struggle with. I shouldn't say everybody because not everybody does, but boy, did I.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think we won't be far off if we say everybody, because it's such a shift. I mean, no high school is like college, you know?
No,
So it's
it's true.
such a shift, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that I brought up before is that self-reflection piece, and learning how to admit when you've made a choice that was detrimental to whatever your health or your academics or your social life, and learning how to not see that as a mistake, but see it as an opportunity to learn, and shifting, especially for kids with ADHD. They've heard so many corrective messages their entire life, and to then be responsible for making these choices, and then they probably have a pretty negative narrative going on in their head,
Mm,
and to learn how to emotionally regulate our emotions so that we're not completely felled by a mistake. I mean, it's not a
right.
mistake, but some choice that we made that didn't ultimately turn out how we thought it was going to be.
Exactly. Or the way we hoped
Yeah.
it would.
Yeah, yeah, and so that self-reflection piece, and really in metacognition, really getting to know yourself and accepting yourself as you are, and then also recognizing, like, okay, these are some things that I really need to work on. And then every single executive function skill is able to be used if you are able to regulate your emotions.
Mhm,
If so, our executive function skills are all, they reside in the prefrontal cortex, which is like the thinking part of our brain,
mhm,
and then below that is our emotional brain. And so we have to get up out of our emotional brain and into our thinking part of our brain to use our executive function skills. So if we can't regulate our emotions, if we freak out at the smallest thing, or if we get really upset at a professor and we can't calm ourselves down and get back up to the thinking part of our brain, it's really difficult to prioritize and manage our time and organize our stuff and eat and sleep and exercise because we're too consumed by our emotions. So learning whatever regulates you, is it exercise, is it breathing, is it absolutely making sure you're getting enough sleep. And so just figuring that part of yourself out and what's going to work for you there is going to make using all of those other executive function skills so much easier.
yeah, yeah. So, all the things that most college students struggle with is just gonna kind of exacerbate the situation if you are neurodivergent. So,
Yes,
really,
absolutely.
really great advice. So, Hannah, before we wrap up, I know you host your own podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what you
Yeah.
cover and where to find it?
Yeah, well, the great thing about executive function skills is they impact every single aspect of our lives.
Yeah.
They're called executive function skills because they help us execute our days. So we cover everything and we cover all ages. We have an episode coming up, which I'm super excited about. It's all about the brain and stress and parenting. And I have
Mm,
Dr.
that sounds
Allison
good.
Roy. Yes. Oh my
Okay.
gosh. Dr. Allison Roy is coming on, and she is just phenomenal. She's such a great speaker and she's really interesting. And so we just cover everything. You name it, we've covered it or will cover it. So, and I
Okay.
have guests on, and sometimes I do solo episodes. So,
Got it.
yeah,
And where
it's a
can we
blast.
find it? That sounds great.
Yes.
I'm going to listen to
Yeah.
it for sure.
Yeah. You can find it at beyondbooksmart.com/podcasts. And we're on all of the standard, podcasting platforms. So you can find us if you just search for Focus Forward. And then I also host our free parenting webinars that Beyond
Mhm.
BookSmart provides. And so you can find those on our events page too. So those are a lot of fun as well.
Awesome. All right. Well, great. Thank you so much, Hannah, for sharing
Oh,
some
you.
great information here with our listeners. And for our listeners, if this situation or these challenges impact you, I would strongly encourage you to check out the podcast, check out the free parent webinars. Maybe a coach at Beyond BookSmart is something you want to look into, or maybe it's simply just getting some great tips. So either way, really appreciate your
Yes.
time. Um,
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. All right. We are going to take a quick break. And when we get back, we're going to talk about insurance of all things. Doesn't sound exciting, but it actually, it's good, important information for those of you with students about to go off to college. So don't go away.